Now, the Russia-Ukraine war is now almost entering into its fourth week. The West has congratulated itself for the sanctions that have been imposed on Moscow, but these countries' leaders are also scratching their heads. What will their actions actually accomplish? Actions, in a sense, their financial sanctions that they have put on Russia. And what exactly is Vladimir Putin's endgame in Ukraine? The United States, the NATO military alliance and the European Union have had one focus over the course of the last 3 weeks, and that is to strangulate the Russian economy and arming the Ukrainian fighters. But it is unclear as to how this war will now stop. No one knows as to what Vladimir Putin has got in his mind. What is he thinking and what will he want to accomplish before he orders for his army to retreat? Now, there is at this point of time no reason to believe whatsoever that the sanctions will actually shatter Vladimir Putin's determination, because Russia has got a friend in China and a few other nations who at this point of time have stood well behind the Russians. The United States and the NATO do not see a breaking point for Putin. There is no economic toll so severe or battlefield losses so devastating that appear to convince the Russian president at this point of time to order his troops to return. American President Biden has said that Ukraine will never be a victory for Putin. But the point, of course, is Ukraine might not be a complete defeat for Putin either. Sanctions and military aid may help slow the Russian advance, but these actions are unlikely to end the fighting and unlikely to stop the Russian war machine. The Kremlin has said that it is still opting to take control of large cities, as Russian troops have begun to encircle major urban hubs in Ukraine. The Defense Ministry has said that it did not rule out putting large cities under full Russian control, and that exceptions would be made for areas that are being used as humanitarian corridors. Even the White House seems to agree that a complete occupation is Putin's only goal.
He clearly has more than a message in mind here. He clearly has the occupation of Ukraine in mind. And he also clearly has diplomatic options available to him that he is obviously not proving willing to take. Now, we have heard talks about talks, and we obviously would love to see them succeed, clearly. But there hasn't been much progress in that regard.
Now, the question, of course, is what could deter Putin is his own leadership being in risk. But so far, there are no signs that Vladimir Putin's grip on power has loosened in any way, even though the Americans have been trying to target the Russian billionaires who are said to be close to Vladimir Putin. There's also a frightening level of uncertainty about what a cornered Putin may do, especially to respond to a genuine threat to his power if it were to arise. As for Ukraine, no one is counting on an outright military victory. This is what the West hopes. Although, in terms of what is unfolding on the ground, the Russians are beginning to tighten the screws militarily on Ukraine. The Ukrainian forces are putting up a remarkable defense with the little help that they are being given by the West. But remember, they've been badly outgunned and outranged, and Russia, of course, brings to the table a superior air force that the Ukrainians simply cannot stand up to. Now, against this backdrop, a diplomatic solution appears unlikely at this point of time. Russia has only hardened its demands since the invasion began last month. Any attempts at diplomacy have proven to be fruitless so far. For many, the fall of Kiev is actually a matter of time. Exactly when Putin would want to press forth with his siege of Kiev, it's difficult to, at this point of time, predict. But what will be the end game is also at this point of time difficult to foresee. But for now, though, there are a few options that he's got in front of him. One is to install a puppet regime. Placing a Russia-friendly government in Kiev is Russia's main objective. But it is not going to be easy. Ukrainians are not likely to bow down to such government, and Volodymyr Zelensky could even form a government in exile. There's the second option, and this is about dismembering Ukraine, splitting up the country. A split perhaps along the Dnieper River remains a possibility. This would, of course, include the rebel-held areas of Donetsk and Luhansk, and also Crimea. But splitting the country will need resources and forces to enforce it in the long term. The third option is, of course, to make sure that Ukraine agrees for a neutral status, a guarantee that Ukraine won't join the NATO military alliance or the European Union. A NATO membership for Ukraine was a red line for Vladimir Putin, so this guarantee may actually help avert further conflict. But even with the uncertainty, there's one thing that officials are sure of. An angry Putin could pour in more troops and more firepower into Ukraine. This means that the bloodshed could actually get way worse in the coming days. The United States has said that it may soon dawn on Vladimir Putin that he will not be able to occupy and retain control of Ukraine or impose a Russia-friendly regime there without facing years of opposition. So this could, of course, mean an ugly next few weeks where Russia could double down on the country. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.